Following is an interview conducted with Eraka Rouzorondu by Carl Nelson on WOL 1450 AM about the good news about racism. The interview was held on Friday, July 29th, 2016.
WOL Washington, WPRS HD2 Waldorf, WKYS HD2 Washington, WMMJ HD2 Bethesda, a Radio 1 station, and worldwide at WOLDCnews.com. The views and opinions of the following show do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of News Talk 1450 WOL, Radio 1 Incorporated, or their management.
Welcome to the Carl Nelson Show
On Washington, D.C.'s 1450 WOL Radio and live around the world on WOLDCnews.com.
And thank you for joining us on this Open Phone Friday. You know, it works. You didn't get a chance to call in this week. Well, now's the time to call us at 800-450-7876. Or if there's a subject you think we should have discussed, or even if we did, and somehow you think we came up a little bit short, reach out to us. Or if there's something going down in your corner of the world and you think the rest of the universe should know about it, reach out to us. It's toll free. It's worldwide. It's 800-450-7876. And all the phone lines are wide open. Before we get kicked off, though, we're going to speak with our very special guest, Eraka Rouzorondu. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Welcome to WOL Radio.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nelson. Thank you for having me.
Now, I understand that you're going to have a discussion about racism, the good news about racism. On the surface, that sounds like an oxymoron. So help us out here.
Well, certainly. I am an empowerment specialist. My company is Ma'at Enterprises. That's M-A''AT Enterprises. As an empowerment specialist, what I do is put people in touch with their inherent personal power. I have 4 companies that do that. One of my subsidiaries is Progressive Human Being, and tomorrow Progressive Human Being will be sponsoring an event called The Good News About Racism. If we understand living life from a powerful perspective, that means no matter what shows up, no matter who shows up, we have to respond to it from a position of power. And the good news about the way racism is demonstrating itself in the modern day is that it is unquestionable. We can no longer talk about this being a post-racial society. We can no longer talk about being able to turn to the system for protection, for sustenance, to meet our basic needs. The good news is every African American capable of objective analysis is very clear where he or she stands in America today. So the good news is, from that perspective of full consciousness and personal empowerment, we can approach the subject of racism and white supremacy in a way that allows us, empowers us to deal with it effectively on a long-term basis.
When you say deal with it effectively, do you mean we can eradicate it or we just have to manage it?
Neutralize it. Mitigate its impact on us. We can have a long-term goal of elimination. We can have that long-term goal, but please understand we're talking maybe 75 years. But the strategy that I put forth in this presentation is something that, if maximally applied, if maximally actualized, can effectively mitigate and neutralize the impact of racism and white supremacy, not just on African Americans, but on white people as well. White people are suffering from white supremacy, believe it or not.
Do they know that?
Some do. One of the reasons, now I've been doing African-centered empowerment for 30 years, and I am now expanding my empowerment services to include European Americans, but because this is an unprecedented time in American history when, because the reality of African Americans is being broadcast daily, there are white people of consciousness who really get it now. They understand what black people have been saying, not for decades, but for centuries. And there are good-hearted, well-intentioned white people asking real questions about racism, about white supremacy, about white privilege, and actually working toward rising above that mentality. So there are a number of people of European descent who do get that they're suffering from white privilege, that they're suffering from white supremacy, that they're part of a system of oppression and don't want that to be their reality and are willing to work to remove themselves and as many of their compadres as possible from the system of oppression. We've got to seize that momentum. And that's exactly what I will do tomorrow at the University of Baltimore, in Baltimore, at 21 West Mount Royal Avenue, beginning at 10 a.m.
My question, why would a white person want to give up that white privilege? I mean, it's almost like a birthright. Why would they want to be equal? Why would they want to be us?
Because the human spirit has nothing to do with race, and the human spirit can be moral. And there are people, I know that I personally would forego privilege if I knew that privilege was oppressing other people, literally costing them their lives. They're seeing the videos. White people are seeing the videos of black people being shot in the street like dogs. They see that there is open season on black people in America. They're becoming conscious of the prison industrial complex, the school-to-prison pipeline. They're becoming conscious of white privilege. They're becoming conscious of what it means to be black in America. And the human spirit can respond to oppression with righteousness. So there are people, I am working literally directly with people who understand that their privilege is at a high spiritual and moral cost. And they are willing to adjust their reality to see to it that we have equal enjoyment of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness under the law.
All right, I hear you. But what's in it for them? Just give me an example of a white person who says, all right, I hear what you're saying, sister, I'm down with what you're saying. But what do they get out of it?
Well, it won't hurt them. It's not like they're going to, they're going to change places with us in the prison industrial complex. They don't lose any rights. They don't lose any privileges. The goal of their growing consciousness is to become active tools to end the oppression of white supremacy, to end the oppression of white privilege, to create an environment where African Americans can breathe, can walk into a restaurant and not feel like they need to connect with all the black people there in order to have a sense of security. They're not going to lose anything. All right? They're going to be white in America. Let's be real clear. But we're talking people whose morality overrides their race consciousness. And these are people who want to do the work to end white supremacist oppression of black people in America because it is the right thing to do. Now, I am an African-centered person. If this was the 1960s, I would be a gun-toting Black Panther. And as I said, I have been dealing with African and African-American empowerment for 30 years. So for these words to be coming out of my mouth, that means that I have direct knowledge of the sincerity of a key group of people. And understand this. When we're talking about addressing racism in America, black people are limited in our ability to have meaningful, systemic, lasting change. We're so sick amongst ourselves that we can't even commit to doing the work that needs to be done. That's not true of white people. They are in the system. They are the system. They can show up in places we can't. They can have conversations we can't. They have access to resources that we don't. And to have these conscious, moral white people working legitimately on our behalf in these systems can only help us. Now, am I saying they're going to be our saviors? No, because only we can save ourselves. But I know that I can't go on Capitol Hill to an Irish pub and throw back a few beers with a senator's aide and then get in and have an audience. I can't do that. You follow? So what we're talking about is people of all races who do not support murder, who do not support enslavement, who do not support financial and political disenfranchisement. Standing up for that saying, I want to know the reality. I want to deal with reality, and I want to be an agent for change. So that's good news.
Yeah, let me interrupt you and ask you this though, because so many white people, deal with it subconsciously. They really don't. They're just going through it every day. What they do, and it's white privilege, and they say they don't do it consciously. It's just a subconscious thing. They understand they can go anywhere on this world and this planet. They can come in the black community, brown community, any community they want, and without reprisals. They understand that.
That's absolutely true.
Well, when we come back, I want you to address that because I hear my drummers warming up, telling us we got to take a break and look at the traffic and weather right here on 1450 WOL, where information is power.
Carl Nelson live and local from 6 to 10 a.m. on 1450 WOL.
And thanks for staying with us, folks. We're on for 47. But anyway, it's an open phone Friday. We will get to your calls momentarily. Just wrapping up here with empowerment specialist Eraka Rouzorondu. She's having an event at the University of Baltimore on Saturday. Before we left for the traffic update, I was asking you the question about the whites who subconsciously go through this on a daily basis. How are you going to reach them? Because many of them don't know that they're latent racist, for lack of a better term.
Well, first of all, I want to address the fact that because white people live under white supremacy and have white privilege, that does not make them racist. You said it yourself. You said the word subconscious. Right. It's just the way that they see reality. It is a mentality. It is a perception of reality, and it is a learned perception of reality. That means it can be unlearned. And that's what's happening in many places around the country. So you raise the issue of white privilege.
Well, I mean, because you're correct in that. Some of them don't know, and they obviously we can't subscribe to them that they're racist. But their actions to us, as Neely Fuller would say, is racist. So how do we know when to give them a pass and when not to give them a pass?
Okay, so one of the things I want us to talk about, when I say us, I'm talking about black people, because we have to deal with racism. We're not dealing with it. We're not dealing with it. We're talking around it. We're dealing with the symptoms. We're not dealing with the root cause. And one of the things I do in my presentation is talk about what is at the root of racism and white supremacy. That's why we have the NAACP, we have Urban League, we have all of these organizations that have been around for decades, spend millions of dollars, and we are worse off in terms of race relations than we have ever been since chattel slavery. All right? It's not working. And the reason it's not working is because we're not talking about the real deal. Okay? So I want to address the idea that people who are enjoying white privilege and the benefits of white supremacy are racist. Racism is a consciousness. Okay? You can do something, you can be socialized to do something, and it's normal to you. You said it yourself. Subconscious. So we have to ask ourselves whether or not it is accurate and appropriate to accuse someone who is engaging in a behavior that they have been socialized to believe is normal, to accuse them of being racist. Do you follow?
I got you.
All right, so, and we can have that conversation, but we have to have that conversation. One of the reasons that we're not linking up with each other and with white people who really want to help black people is because we're so busy pointing fingers and labeling instead of listening and teaching. So let's talk about white privilege. Let's talk about some of the work that's being done by white people around understanding white privilege. And please understand, my event tomorrow is multiracial. I got stuff to say to our people as well as to white people. There's going to be all kind of folk up in the house. Okay? So I want to talk about work being done by a woman named Peggy McIntosh, White Privilege, Unpacking the Invisible Knapsack. Okay? And in this is her thesis work, and she lists the privileges of being white in America. And that brings it from the subconscious mind to the conscious mind. For example, she writes, I can go into a music shop and count on finding the music of my race being represented. Into a supermarket and find the staple foods which fit my cultural traditions. Into a hairdresser shop and find someone who can cut my hair. That is a subconscious enjoyment of white privilege, which, when brought to the conscious mind, helps edify and educate white people about the nature of day-to-day oppression, of black people in this country, our level of disenfranchisement, that it happens when we go into the supermarket. It happens when we're looking to get our hair done. It happens when we want to go buy music that speaks to us. Do you follow? So by bringing it from the subconscious to the conscious mind, people can become conscious of it. And that is going to have a psycho-spiritual and emotional reaction. And what I'm saying is, if we stop pointing fingers and calling names and educate each other and ourselves on exactly what racism and white supremacy are, these are human-made problems. That means they can be human-solved. And I know how to solve them. And that's what we're going to talk about tomorrow, 10 a.m., 21 West Mount Royal. For information, go to thegoodnewsaboutRacism.com and find out how to participate.
All right, give us that phone number again, that contact number again, Eraka.
I can be reached at 410-240-9572. That's 410-240-9572. Or go to thegoodnewsaboutRacism.com.
I'm going to let you go because it's over phone Friday. But, maybe someday later on we'll come back and we talk about this because, as you mentioned, you're correct. It's not discussed a lot. And there are some issues that both sides need to talk about. So we'd love to have you back at a later time. All right?
Absolutely. I look forward to it.
All right.
Thank you.
And let us know how it turns out in Baltimore on Saturday.